Guys, and welcome to our live. We're trying to start doing these lives twice a month. We missed the first of this month because, as you can see behind me, we're setting up a new studio. It's not quite done yet, but today I'm going to give everyone a little bit of time to file in before I go introducing our special guest today. Honestly, I was sick of hearing myself talk by myself. So I very much wanted to invite someone very special to come and talk with us today, someone who's an expert in an idea or in a theme that is really very popular in Panama right now, which is the Qualified Investor Visa. It is catching traction, and we're going to go into today why it's catching traction. But before, let's give everyone a little bit of time to file in. And in the meantime, I'm going to make an introduction to our special guest today. We have Horacio Mendoza from GLP Properties. So Horacio is the Director of Business Development at GLP. Horacio, you've been with GLP almost as long as I've been alive. I hate to see it.
Well, I have been a part of the GLP team since 2010, so it's almost 16 years now.
Okay, not quite as long as I've been alive. I overestimated it. But you've been in real estate in Panama for a very
For
long time
almost
as
30
well.
years.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, there, closer. But before we get chatting, because it's only 6, we're gonna give people a little bit of time to file in. So as always, if you guys can put in the chat where you're from, it's kind of a fun way to spark conversation. We have a Nebraskan interviewing a Panamanian today. So we'll start there. I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska. If you guys are not familiar, my name is Kiley Herold. Let me back up. If you guys are not familiar with the channel and you don't always watch, my name is Kiley Herold, and I oversee our international department here at GLP Properties, where we talk about everything from the different projects that we have at GLP to what you should do the second you step off the plane, if you're visiting or if you're moving to Panama. We try and cover it all. So, and we're doing lives. We were doing lives on the first of every month, and now we're going to start trying to do 2 lives a month where I think one of them will be a real estate market update, and then the other one we're going to bring on special guests. And Horacio, you are actually our first special guest.
Thank
So,
you so much.
yeah, please
Okay,
feel
maybe
honored.
let me introduce myself.
Please.
My name is Horacio Mendoza. I'm an architect. I'm 50 years old, Panamanian. And as Kylie mentioned before, I have been involved in the real estate business for the last 30 years. I joined GLP in 2010, at the end of 2010. And initially, I was the commercial director for the company. Then I got involved in marketing. And as of today, I am the marketing director. I also foresee all of our international business development efforts. Um, for the last year, we have been trying to understand and to get involved in the migration industry because we see that a lot of people are interested in applying for the qualified investor visa. So that is the main reason for us getting involved in this business.
Yeah. It was kind of organic, actually. You and I kind of, I don't want to say fell into it, but it became a very interesting part of the conversation. And whenever I find myself like describing to clients the process of it, and then I will go to my sheet that I've made with a list of questions and where we're going with this. But how we kind of fell into this was we just had clients that started wanting to make the application, and the law, as the law is written, I don't want to say it's vague, but it is left open to interpretation. And so we
Yes.
had a lot of back and forth with the actual Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And so I like to say that we are not lawyers, disclaimer, large disclaimer, not lawyers, but just in the course of like street credibility from doing so many different applications, we have put, I would say, the Ministry of Commerce in a lot of situations where we're like, hey, how we have a client that is interested in doing it in this way. One, would you accept it? Two, like, how would you like us to structure it? So it's been a lot of back and forth and a learning process for us, of, again, not lawyers, but we have
Yes,
a,
Kylie. And as a matter of fact, I would say that part of the learning curve has been traveling to many destinations to attend a lot of international shows specialized in migration and getting to know the people who are involved in this business.
correct.
We're very clear that 1 year ago, Panama was not in the top of mind of many people. So we needed to travel and spread the news about Panama. Let them people know what is happening here and what does the qualified investor visa, uh, what the requirements are.
And what are the benefits? Like, what does it bring to
Yes,
the
of
table for
course,
someone, no?
of course.
Okay, so before we get into, actually, let's go over, because I think it's probably the most important part. So we broke down the visa application process in 9 steps. So I'm going to go over the visa application process before I get into, I have questions for you about like the current landscape, what we're seeing, who's coming, that type of thing. But I want to go over the process for people that are not necessarily familiar with it. So there is a specific visa in Panama called the Qualified Investor Visa. And the Qualified Investor Visa is a specific visa that is actually processed through the Ministry of Commerce and Industry as opposed to being processed through immigration. And what that does is that allows the application to be reviewed and processed quicker. The the other popular visa usually has a lead time of, it takes usually about 6 months during the application. And then once it's granted the temporary residency, this is the friendly nations, then you have a 2-year temporary residency. And so this visa is the fastest, I would say most efficient. And honestly, from the number that you have to invest, not that high of a number. It's surprising.
It's very affordable.
Yes, exactly.
And,
So,
and Kylie, it is very important to let people know that the qualified investor visa has 3 pathways that you can use to apply.
yep.
The the minimum, which is 300,000, that you have to invest in a real estate property in Panama. The second one will be $500 that you have to invest in stock in Panama. And the third
500,000,
one,
500,000.
sorry.
Thank you.
And
Dory.
the third one will be $750,000 in a time deposit for 5 years. So as you
Perfect.
can see, the most affordable one is the real estate one, which is
By far.
$300,000.
And you get to hold a hard asset. Okay. So let me run through the 9 simple steps really quickly before we get into, I have lots of good questions for you that we've taken either before, or I put together kind of a frequently asked questions of what people come inquiring about the visa for you. So step 1 would be finding a good Panamanian immigration attorney. You're going to need, the visa application is submitted through a Panamanian attorney. So if you guys don't have a contact, feel free to reach out to us and we're happy to make one for you. The visa process, I would not say it is complicated, but there's definitely law firms who know what they're doing, have done a lot of applications. It's just a smooth sailing process. So that's number 1, is you need to find a good attorney. Number 2 would be, as Horacio already mentioned, you're choosing your investment route. So you have 3 different investment routes that you can choose for the qualified investor visa. In terms of, I'm going to go from least expensive to most expensive. 300,000 is the real estate. And then you have 500,000 in the securities or stock market here in Panama. Or you can pick $750,000 in a fixed term deposit here in a Panamanian bank. The third step would be, so basically you're preparing personal documentations. That's for both the visa application and the due diligence of the developer. So this would be after you have selected, we're assuming here that you've selected the real estate piece, then you're preparing personal documentation. So what you need for the visa application is 3 things. You need a contract, so you need a promissory purchase agreement from us, the developer. You need a certification of funds, and that certification of funds can come through either a trust with $300,000 in it, or through a certified bank letter. And then you need basically to pass, it's like a due diligence of the country, which that's where they ask you for your police records and things. But with those three pieces, you can make the visa application. So you're basically preparing documentation, which that piece, I would say, depending on where you're at, can sometimes take the longest. For example, you need FBI background check if you're an American. You need, in Canada, you guys have some report from the mounted police. I don't remember the exact name of it, but those specific reports can take a little while. So once you know that you want to make the visa application and you've connected with a lawyer, they're going to give you a list of documentation. So before you've even selected your property, you can start putting together your documentation. Then step 4 is signing a promissory purchase agreement. So with us as a developer, we have an agreement that you would sign, and transferring the funds. So that would be either directly to the developer or through the trust vehicle. And then you need a certification of funds. So the certification of funds, if you send it through the developer, is a certified bank letter or the trust. Then we're on step 7, so there's only 3 more. Hang with me. Then you have, you actually make the submission for the Qualified Investor Visa application. Step 8 is you usually complete Panamanian immigration formalities to receive a temporary card. So you get a temporary card it's usually about 30 days before you get your Panamanian cedula. And then number 9 is receive permanent residency in Panama. I will tack on a number 10 there. If after 5 years you want to make the application to become a citizen in Panama, you can. But step 10, there is about a 5-year time frame between step 9 and step 10. So that is the overall steps, the logistics of it. But now I want to get into some questions with Horacio. Okay, so I made a list here, kind of an outline, and I'm curious. So of the qualified investor applications that are coming into Panama right now, can you give us an idea of kind of the nationalities, the backgrounds that you guys are seeing? I know that you're in communication with the Minister of Commerce, so I'd just like to understand, like, who's coming? Who does Panama make sense for?
Yes, absolutely. I would say that most of the applicants are from the US, from Canada, from Germany, from Colombia, and we're starting to receive an influx from Asians also.
Okay, interesting. What I've seen interacting with these clients on a daily basis, I'll add on to that, would be whoever seems to be going through something interesting. That could be something political, that could be something geopolitical, depending on where they're located. A lot of these people are just really interested in looking for a plan B. Plan B is a big piece of it. So you can tell what's going on in the world based off of
Taxes are a common factor in many
taxes
cases.
that's a huge factor. One week I had about 5 Australians, and on the 5th call I was like, what's going on there? What is happening? Because
Usually
something,
it's taxes.
yeah, and it was they're starting to implement at the end of this year a new capital gains tax.
And
So
as
I
far
learned.
as I can recall, for Germans, is also the mandatory military service, if I'm not wrong.
Yep, exactly. That was a big piece. And also, like, I don't know, no one likes to be around a place where they don't feel safe, no? Because we've been seeing some from Dubai as well. I've been seeing
When it comes to Panama, it's all about quality of life and connectivity.
safety's up there. I throw safety in that as well.
Mhm.
Okay, have you seen any shift in profile? I know I have, so I'm curious to hear your feedback. A shift in profile from like retirees versus like entrepreneurs or families. I'll answer before I let you. I would say I've seen the demographic of person interested in this visa get younger.
Yes, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure,
But
for sure.
outside of that, have you seen any like shifts in profile of someone who's coming with a qualified investor?
I would say it's a mix. It's a mix after all. And just for you to know, 5 years ago, most of our international clients, they were in the range of 60 to 65 years and up. Now we have seen people in the range of 45 to 55 coming to Panama.
Yep.
So there has been a change in the
It's true.
profile.
It's true because before I never used to really recommend, let's say, schools, and now I find myself
Uh-huh.
recommending even like primary schools. So
Uh-huh.
when kids are in like kindergarten, and that
Uh-huh.
10 years ago didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, this part I think is very important. The misconceptions, because by the time I know you get a lot of questions about this, but when someone arrives to us and they start asking questions, they're like, hey, I heard this, hey, I heard that. There's a lot of misconceptions around this visa. I think a big piece of it is people are getting information here and there and maybe not getting like the full picture of it. But what would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions about the qualified investor visa?
I would say that there's a deadline rumor that is costing investors money in Panama because someone has created the idea that by September or of October this year, the threshold is going to go from 300,000 to 500,000.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest with you, we have consulted this with many lawyers, and all of them agree that that is not included in the law, and that's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Do you hear, I mean, do you see any sort of there was an extension of October for something. So in terms of what's the word I'm looking for? Like, do you think there will be any tweak to the program in October?
I think that some minor adjustments might
Mm-hmm.
come, but it is important to understand that in Panama, all of the properties, as of today, they apply
Mm-hmm.
for the program. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if they are new properties or second-hand properties.
Mm-hmm.
What we have heard is that it is very possible that the threshold remains the same, 300,000 for new properties,
Mm-hmm.
and that for the second-hand properties, it will be raised to 500,000.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good to know. I mean, this is just honestly chatter, so we have to wait till October to
Mm-hmm,
see.
mm-hmm.
But it's good information to have. I know also usually people that are looking at, let's say, residency programs around the world, they're looking at various different programs. So they're looking at Panama, they're looking at Greece,
Yes,
they're
but you
looking
know
at
what happens, Kylie? People now, what they do is that they get into Claude or ChatGPT and they start asking questions.
yeah,
And if I were them, I will ask for the source because sometimes those sources are not reliable.
sure. The source is not reliable, and I think wires get crossed because I think people do so much research that sometimes they read something. For example, this happened in specific areas in Greece or in other programs. You have to invest in like government approved projects, no, where the government kind of says, here, this is a qualifying project. Anything outside of that does not. So in Panama, we don't have government approved projects. Any project qualifies,
Yes,
which
yes. All of the
is,
projects, they qualify. But you
yeah,
know what? At GLP, we're very careful about what we publish. And before we publish anything, we verify with our legal counsel to be sure about the advice we're going to give our clients.
and because these things are always changing, no? So even if
Mm-hmm,
one day
mm-hmm,
we have it straight, it could change. I
mm-hmm.
would say another kind of misconception that I run into, or more of a crossing of wires, is because the friendly nations and qualified investor are often in the same conversation, they're
Mm-hmm.
similar in, let's say, price point, but they're very different in
In the
practice,
timeline.
in the timeline and in, I mean, even in the timeline of the property, whether the property has to be finished or not.
Yes.
So just to, I mean, I'll touch on that quickly and then we can move to the next one. But the Friendly Nations has a slightly lower minimum requirement of $200,000
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the qualified investor, which is 300,000. But the
Mm-hmm.
Friendly Nation grants you temporary residency for 2 years, and then you have to
Mm-hmm.
reapply for permanent. When the qualified investor gives you basically immediate permanent residency
From
once
day
it's been
one.
reviewed. Yeah,
Yes, from day
once it's been
one.
reviewed. Another one, which as an American, this doesn't even cross my mind because I will forever have the IRS around. But for other nationalities that can change their tax residencies, just because you get a permanent residency in Panama does not automatically make that your tax residency.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. And the most important,
You have to spend more than 180 days here in Panama per year.
correct. I know Canadians that the second they do they have like a 2-year plan, they start kind of offloading assets over that 2-year plan. At the end of year 2, when they finally kind of like do their deemed disposition and leave, they literally get on a plane the next day and they know that for 183 days they're in Panama because they want to get that tax residency as soon as they can. The other one, so this one I get a lot, and then I think we can maybe move to some questions that people have already sent us. But thinking that the investment it's a 5-year time frame that you have to hold a real estate investment in Panama over
Yes, but
$300,000.
can I say something?
Please.
First of all, during the first 5 years, you need to keep a property in Panama. However, you can sell your property and you're going to have a window of opportunity of 6 months to replace it with a new one. After the 5 years, you can sell your property and you don't have to retain one in Panama. Okay?
That's it. That's
However, and I want to be very clear about this, we are not selling citizenship by investment. We're selling residency by investment, which is a pathway for citizenship. If you decide to apply for the citizenship, the best you can do is to retain the property until you get the citizenship, because you have to prove your ties with the country. And the best way to do that is to show that you have a property in Panama.
It's good. Okay, so let's move on to, we made a top 15 questions. These are questions
Okay.
that people that maybe couldn't join us sent previously, so we compiled a list. And then while we're going over these, we should be able to go through these pretty quick because some of these are pretty basic. But what we'll do is if you guys can leave us questions in the chat, we can go adding those questions to the end of this, okay? So the
Okay,
first one,
shoot me.
here we go, shoot. What exactly is Panama's Qualified Investor Visa?
Okay, Qualified Investor Visa is a law that allows you as a foreigner to invest X amount of money in Panama and get permanent residency immediately. As mentioned before, there are 3 routes that you can apply. The basic one, the lower threshold is $300,000 that you have to invest in a real estate property in Panama. The second one will be $500,000 that you have to invest in the stock market here in Panama. And the last one is $700,000 in a time deposit for 5 years. Once you choose one of those routes, you will be able to apply for the permanent residency in Panama, and after 5 years, you have the option to apply for the citizenship in Panama.
Super, thank you. Okay, question 2 is, I gotta move my camera out of the way. How much do I need to invest in 2026?
It depends on how fast you want to apply for the residency. If you are not in a hurry, we can work with a regular payment schedule, which is basically you will have to pay 30% as a down payment, and the remaining 70 will be upon delivery of the unit, which can take 1.5 years, 2.5 years. It depends on the project. But if you want to apply immediately for the residency, you have to disburse the whole $300,000.
That's important. So we've had people start on like a normal payment plan. For example, someone's selling a house. They know that they plan to put a house up for sale in, I don't know, September. So they know the property that they want. They start on a normal payment schedule. And then once the house sells and they get the funds and they can pay it off, then that's when they can make the visa application. So you can start gathering your paperwork, pick the property that you want. You don't have to have 100% of the funds up front to like start the process, but to actually make the visa application, you do.
Kylie, there's something which I think is very interesting. If you're buying a property which is more than 300,000, you will be able to finance the difference between the 300,000 and let's say 500,000. However, the first 300,000 have to be an investment, and the funds have to come from another country. You cannot use money that you already have in Panama. That's
That's
very
important.
important. So be
That's
careful
important.
when you transfer the money.
That's important. On Monday, actually, I had to stop someone from wiring money to Panama because were so excited they opened a Panama bank account, and they were like,
Uh-huh.
"No, no, I'm going to wire it to myself, and then I'll pay you." And I was like, "No, you can't.
No.
Don't do that." So we stopped him early enough, but the intention was there. It was just not logistically good. So ask us before you do. Ask us before you do something. Okay, why is everyone talking about the 300 real estate option as opposed to the other two?
Because it's the most affordable one, and you're gonna have an asset.
Agreed. Can I buy a condo that is still under construction and qualify?
Yes, of course. But as Kylie mentioned, you're gonna need your public deed to apply for the qualified investor visa.
And that can take a little while. Like if it's a time crunch, if there's a time crunch, that can take a little bit longer because a transfer of the public deed, depending on if there's liens, etc., can take longer than something that comes directly from a developer. Just be aware. Okay, the next one is you kind of answered this, but I'll ask it anyways. Can I finance part of the property?
Yes, as long as it is the part that is on top of $300,000.
Correct. You can't finance the visa. That's usually what I say.
No, no.
Okay, where does the investment money need to come from?
Any country.
Anywhere outside of Panama, anything
Mm-hmm.
internationally sourced.
Mm-hmm.
How do I prove source of funds?
That's a good point. You can provide bank statements for 6 months. You can provide I don't remember at this moment, Kylie.
2 years of tax
Statements.
returns. You
Uh-huh.
can
Yes.
produce 2 years of tax returns. You can have a CPA write a letter. You can have your banker write a letter. The bank letter is
There are
probably
many
one of the
ways.
yeah.
There are
There's a
many
lot of
ways.
ways, and it depends on how you also earn income. You can get a letter from your company stating how much you make. Like there's there's some that are I'd say more invasive and some that are less invasive, but there's a lot of options. Okay, what documents should I start collecting before coming to Panama?
First of all, you need to have your record, your record. You need to have copies of your passports. You need to have if you have a marriage certificate, birth certificate for your kids. Because one thing which is very important, Kylie, is that under the qualified investor visa, you can apply with your spouse, with your kids below 25 years, and with your parents, as long as all of them are dependents.
Perfect. Okay, what happens from the moment I choose a property until I receive residency? So let's assume that that is talking about with pre-construction.
Well, first of all, you have to sign a purchase agreement. Then you need to establish how you're going to be paying for the property. If you're going to go the traditional way of paying the down payment and um, completing the rest of the sales price upon delivering the unit, or if you want to apply immediately, you have to pay in full the property. Once you pay in full the property, you will have a public deed, which is in the public records of Panama, and then you can use that as a proof of investment for the qualified investor visa.
Super. Okay, how long does the process realistically take? That's a question I get a lot.
Okay, the most important thing is that the process can start by giving a power of attorney. You don't have to be here in Panama, but it's very likely that within the next 30 days, you will have to come down to Panama. First of all, to receive your card to well, you're going to receive a temporary residence while your card is ready. But once you're going to receive your permanent residency, you have to come down for your biometrics and to get your photo taken.
Yes.
So
To go
that's the first step.
to go on your cedula, yes. And we've seen, I'd say the process is realistically taking a little bit longer than before because, for example, there's a lot of applications at the moment. The last I heard, there was something like 72 applications and 2 people reviewing them. So something that typically took like 5 business days was taking, let's say, 10 business
A couple,
days.
a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So
Yes.
the 30 days might be unrealistic. It's probably 45 days, 60 days at this point, just because there's more applications. You touched on this one, but can I include my spouse and children?
Yes, of course, as long as your children are below 25 years and they are dependents.
And not married. And not married.
I'm not married, yes.
Okay. Do I actually have to live in Panama? That's a good one.
No, not at all. You only have to come to Panama for a week every 2 years,
It's one of the
which is a vacation.
least. Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to spend over a week here in 2 years, then I don't know. Do you really want the residency? But I think it's one of the least, like the lowest requirements for any residency by investment program that exists. Can I rent the property and earn income from it?
For sure,
For
for
sure.
sure. And as a matter of fact, at GLP, we have created different programs for you depending on your needs. We have like what we call GLP income collection, where you buy a property, you have a title property, and we manage the property for 3 years, and we offer you a minimum return per year. We have another one, which is lifestyle, where you buy a property because you are considering moving to Panama at some point and you don't want to rent it, but we can offer you the property management service. There's another thing where we can offer you a portfolio participation. Instead of buying a property, you will buy a share of a portfolio participation. And the last one is where you buy a condo hotel unit. We manage the property for 5 years, and you have a clear exit program after 5 years.
It's good. I'd say that's a pretty good menu.
So we have covered all of the options.
Okay, and then we have the last on our initial list of questions, and then we have some bonus questions on here. But what are the
Uh-huh.
biggest mistakes investors make when applying?
First of all, you need to understand the country that you are considering. The first step is the country, the second step is the developer, and the third one is the property. First of all, in our case, our company has been in business since 1985. So it has been 41 years. We have learned a lot down the road. We have made mistakes, but we have learned a lot. And the other thing is to understand what your plan is. If you're planning to move to Panama, if you only want to have a property that gives you a return every year. So those are the main considerations for you.
And depending on how hands-on or hands-off you want to be, we have turnkey solutions for everything. So whether
Yes,
it's
for sure.
for the rental side, for the furnishing side, for whatever it is. I mean, I found not that I want to be in this place, but I get too close with my clients and I end up helping them find nannies or
Yes,
and,
but you
and
know what is very important, Kylie? Most of our clients are in Germany, in Colombia, in Canada, in the US, and they want to make an investment. They don't want to buy a headache. So that's why we are the biggest vacation rental operator here in Panama, and we can offer them the property management service, which means that we will pay utilities, we will collect the rent,
yeah.
we will pay the HOA, we will be on top of any repairs that have to be done within the unit. So that's really important.
Yeah, that's great. And I think I like that box is like in the front of mind. It's very important, the investment box. But I think Panama wins a lot of people over. So I know a lot of people that come and they just want initially they think that they just want the visa and they just want the investment and it checks both boxes for them. And then they're like, actually, I kind of like Panama, quite a bit more than I was thinking to do so.
But you know that the most common error is to make decisions based on misconceptions. We were talking about the supposed deadline rumor. And to be honest with you, I think that the problem is in a part ethical and in another part is practical. A residence and investment decision made under artificial pressure is not a good decision. So it's better to take some time to get in touch with someone who has the experience, which has been in the business for a long time. And if you're considering residency in Panama, I would advise you to have a conversation with us without an invented deadline. Uh, let's try to understand what your needs are, what are the routes that you have to invest here in Panama, and how to structure a process so you can make a good decision.
And something that I would add to that is don't try and do too many things with the same property. That is something that I will, you can put it on my headstone when I die because I see too many people try and like they're eager, they're excited. One thing, if you have not spent a lot of time in Panama, I don't know that most people know where they want to live, where they want to actually put down roots and live. I can get an idea for international people. Yes, there's areas of Panama City. If it's Panama, you're either Panama City or the beach. You can start there. But within Panama City, there's definitely areas that are more comfortable for international people. But
Yes.
I always say you can divide Panama into three boxes. You have the investment box, you have the
Yes.
immigration box, and you have the lifestyle box. I feel very, very comfortable advising people on two of the three boxes, generally
Uh-huh.
speaking, because it took me a while to figure out where I wanted to live when I got here, you know? But if you can check the immigration box and the investment box, what this visa allows you to do with the reselling, the selling and then rebuying of the properties, I say, come down, get something that qualifies you for residency, get something at 300,000 that I know is a good investment and that I know will qualify you for residency, and then come and spend some time here. And then during that time,
And that is gonna be a good product for reselling it.
exactly, because we've raised prices as a developer, so they've already made money, or it's cash flowing for them, and then they buy something else in a place that they like. But I, the lifestyle piece for me, because everyone's different, everyone has different, wants and likes and whatever needs. That is one that I don't always feel as comfortable like saying, I think this is for you. Have I seen people check all three boxes with one property? Yes, but do I think it's super common? Not sure.
No. But you know what? Please keep always in mind that rule number one for real estate is location, location, location.
That's
And
true.
at GLP, we have the best locations in Panama. We have artificial islands, we have golf courses, we have beach, we have city projects, whatever you need.
That's true. We're everywhere. Literally, we have, if you include everything at the beach, 22 active projects. So we
And
have,
Kylie, what we have seen commonly, and I think we just mentioned that, is that people come to Panama attracted by the $300,000 threshold, but once they get their feet down here and they start going around Panama and they see the different options, they end buying at the golf course, at the islands, at Playa Caracol, which is a beach project about 1.5 hours away from Panama City. So it's worth coming down to Panama
it's very true. How many
and
times have
spending a
we,
couple of days.
how many times have we had something reserved for someone at 300,000 and then they come down and they're like, actually, I like this one over here that's around 800,000 or 900,000. So it happens a
Yes.
lot. Panama wins a lot of people over. Okay. Let's end. Actually, this is my last question that I have from what people have sent in, and then we'll see if there's any more in the chat. But if you had 300 to $500,000 today, what type of Panama property would you actually get for this program? Like, what would that get you?
It depends. We have several options. First of all, we have hotel units in Panama City that come completely furnished. Um, and they're going to be professionally managed by hotel operators that have agreements with our company. That's an option. The other option, you can buy a property in Playa Caracol, which is a beach development. First of all, because in Panama is a very small country. You can go from Panama City to the beach in 1.5 hours. And we Panamanians, we like to go to the beach as much as possible. People go for the weekends, people go for the holidays. So those are very good properties for rentals. So that's the kind of property you would like to have. And as a matter of fact, it's very important to mention that in Panama City, there's a regulation that requires that any short-term rentals have to be at least 45 days. That is the reason that a project like Ventu, which is one of our projects, has applied for a touristic license that allows you to have short-time rentals. But once you cross the Panama Canal and you go to the beach, there are no regulations. So you can rent for 1 day, for 1 week, for 15 days, for a month, for a year. So it's very flexible. And that's a favorite for our international clients because the Canadians, they come here for 4 or 5 months, they stay in the property, and the rest of the year we manage them the property and we rent it out and collect the rent.
It's not so bad. It's a pretty good option. Okay. Watching from Thailand. Hello.
Hey,
Wow.
hello.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. Good.
Saskatchewan. That's one of my favorite places to
Canada.
say. Saskatchewan. David here. Originally from Cuba. Living in Omaha.
Omaha,
What?
Nebraska.
David. It's going to get cold soon, David. Enjoy the end of summer while you can.
Well, guys, we are here to help as much as possible. Just let us know what we can do. Send us a message, call us, send us an email.
We're happy. Thank you so much for watching. We're so happy that you guys joined in with us. And thanks for listening to Not Just Me Talk. I much prefer this.
This is just episode 1 of the saga. So we will keep coming.
To be continued. We're going to put a link in the description box below so you guys can contact me and Horacio, our teams, and you guys can ask all the questions you want about the Qualified Investor Visa or see what properties qualify you. But thank you so much for watching. And if you didn't get your questions in, you can add it as a comment to this video, and I'll go through and answer them as I can.
Yes, and if needed, we speak English, Spanish, and Chinese.
Yep. And I'm sure there's some other in the offices we can rummage up, but whatever.